I coached at public high schools. So the number one difference being here is we can talk about Jesus openly. When you're teaching, when you're coaching, when you're encouraging, it's not what I want. It's not what the team needs. It's what we're called to. So there's a deeper level of accountability. So now that we're not just shaping an athlete, we're shaping their heart. We're walking alongside them on their journey. So when we talk about being a good teammate, it's not for the betterment of our team. It's because the Lord calls us to consider others more important than ourselves. It's selflessness.
As Christians, we know we're called to live lives that are different from the world around us. This isn't aimless, but purposeful. And as parents, we know this to be true for our children and our approach to education as well. So how do we do this? How can we be thoughtfully and intentionally different in education, parenting, community, and culture? What role do athletics play at a classical Christian school? Does participation in sports detract from the pursuit of a true education? On this episode of Different by Design, we tackle this very question, examining the proper role of athletics in shaping students' development and formation as true disciples of Christ, using sports for purposes far greater than personal accolades or the score on a scoreboard. Welcome to Different by Design. Welcome to Different by Design. I'm your host, Matt Dixon, and today's guests include the one and only Liz Caddo, alongside a couple of members of our Trinity athletic staff, Ollie Aguilar and James DeMombrin. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Ollie, I'd like to start with you, but could you share a little bit of your background and what brought you to Trinity, how long you've been here?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm going into my 8th year here at Trinity. My background has been part of my testimony. Been coaching for over 20 plus years at the high school level. I came out of the corporate world, and I knew that the Lord was asking me He had something better for me. Didn't know what that was at the time. So it was a journey, at the school I was at, paying tuition for my kids at that time when I stepped out of the corporate life. And then got to a point where I was applying for a job at the school to help with tuition, because at that time took a pay cut. And when I was applying for the job, I was shocked to learn that I was interviewing for the athletic director job. And I ended up getting the job as athletic director. The glory to God that I knew He had something different for me. And at the end of it, He gave me the dream job that anybody could ever want.
Yeah, so you've now been doing various things in athletic departments. Let's kind of say it that way for how long?
18 years in athletics,
Okay.
8 years at Trinity.
Yeah, great.
Just remember having some meetings, wanted to see something different, and seeing what Trinity was doing from afar and seeing all the great things that you were doing at the time when you were athletic director. Just seeing all the support from little nights to grammar, logic, and rhetoric. I think I remember having a conversation with you saying, is Liz always like that? She would come, her and Wally would be in center court and giving me a hug, seeing how I was doing, how my family was doing, and just seeing all the support that Trinity, their faculty, staff, always at all these games. And I was amazed. And then seeing and hearing, because we were friends, what you were doing, just wanted to be part of something greater. And that's what brought me over to Trinity.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Me too, Ollie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And James, what's your story? How'd you end up here?
How'd I get here? Well, I grew up in our valley and played out here, and I started coaching at 17 because I wasn't talented enough to keep playing. So I started coaching. I met the Caddos years ago. I run a youth club in our valley called Starting Five, and their daughter Lily played in our club. So I spent 6 years coaching boys at Valencia, 5 coaching boys at West Ranch. And then right before I was here, I was on the men's staff at the Masters University for a few years. And during my time there, got to know Liz and Wally really well. And they had an opening here that we talked about. And the Lord just made it clear that the level of basketball that I was coaching wasn't nearly as important as being in a place where you can have impact. They had a hard time finding a a coach for their girls basketball team. And I couldn't get over that. I don't know why it bothered me so much. And now I look back and go, the Lord was trying to tell me something. And so we were at a tournament in Las Vegas, and I looked at Wally and said, have you guys found a girls coach yet? He said, no, it's really hard. I said, well, when we get home, let's just sit down and talk. Really? I said, Wally, let's just talk. Let's just.
Yeah, not promising anything. We're just talking.
Yeah, we're just going to chat. And so when we got home, it was probably, we drove home Sunday night. It was probably Monday that I get a phone call from Liz that's going, hey, let's talk. So the Lord just made it clear that this is where he wanted me. And it was December of 2020 that I started here. It's been great.
Well, it's always fun to kind of hear how the Lord works in people's lives and how we end up at the same place and really even doing different things for you guys, in your case, in athletics. But yet what I see and what I'm thankful for here at Trinity is that we have a common goal. What we're trying to do with our students and for our students. And, honestly, I think athletics is always a challenging topic. There's a lot of strong feelings and strong opinions on every side. We have some people who think that maybe we don't put enough emphasis on athletics. Other people that think we put too much an emphasis on athletics. And probably if we have both sides, maybe we're finding a good middle. But then you add into the mix of that, doing athletics, participating in athletics at a classical Christian school, it can be even more challenging. And I remember, Ollie, you mentioned, yes, I used to work in athletics. And even during my time there and thinking about these strong feelings and strong opinions of students and parents alike, I was always fascinated by the facts, which, we see this in our culture. We see the professionalization, if you will, of 5, 6, 7-year-olds who think, parents think, oh, they're the next, whatever, fill in the blank of whatever sport that is. And they're going to make it big and they're going to, do all of this. And for some, that seems to be their goal. College sports, professional, whatever that is. And that seems to be the trajectory. And yet, I think when we look at facts, when we know the reality, we see that less than 10% of current high school students are going to go on and play college sports at some level. More than that, it's a fraction of a percent of current high school students that are going to go on and play pro. And so I think when we look at those statistics and we look at that information, it begs the question, why do athletics at all? Right? If I'm not going to, if this isn't going to become my life, and if this isn't going to turn into something I do professionally, then shouldn't I just lay it aside? Shouldn't that just be something that we don't do? And I'll focus on the things that are more practical. What's the point? And Liz, I think of you and Wally, fun fact, college athletes, but even starting the school, I know even early on when we've had conversations about athletics, and I knew that was an important part for you guys of being a part of the culture of our school, given all that information that I just shared. Why? Like, why have it? Why pursue it? Why strive for excellence even in that arena at a classical Christian school?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. Yes, early on, we knew that we wanted our students, all of our students, to have a full experience when it came to being a student or a student at Trinity. And that meant athletics, it meant music, art, building relationship, being a part of a community. And sports provides an opportunity for our students to be on a team, try something new. Even if they're afraid, they go for it. I love at our school, we have athletes that their freshman year are trying something for the first time, or also participating in another sport that might not be their main sport, but they're on another team because their buddies are on it and they want to engage and be a part of that as well. But when we're talking about raising the next generation, our students learn certain things in the classroom. They can learn other things on the court or the field. Then they can learn something else on the stage. They have no idea what their capacity is for anything until they try it. Yeah. And it just shapes them and what the Lord will have for them.
Yeah. Amen. And honestly, I saw this oftentimes. I mean, we see it in an everyday sense where we laugh on some level, where students work out what they're learning in the classroom on the playground.
Absolutely.
And I think that's even, at a higher level, especially when you get into competitive athletics. How do you respond when you lose?
Yeah.
What's your response maybe even when you win? Do you gloat? And what does that look like? And how do we work out even these biblical principles that God calls us to in this culture and in this arena of athletics? It's hard.
Well, yes. And how do we persevere when something's hard or we don't necessarily get it the first or second time? And how do we keep trying something and learning?
Yeah.
And it just makes it for a different person when it's all said and done.
Yeah. James, you live in a little bit in both worlds, in kind of the club world, but also the school, academic world. Because obviously there are different aims and goals on some level.
Sure.
Right? Here, athletics is just a piece of the puzzle as far as what a student is participating in versus, this is our whole thing that we are striving for. What do you see students learn or learning in their participation in athletics at a school? I
mean, it varies by age, right? When you're little, when you're taking part in our Little Knights clinics or some of our grammar teams, sometimes you're just learning how to be courageous, how to get over the fear of looking silly or not knowing what you're doing or, things like that.
Which is a skill in and of itself.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you can learn, principles and concepts and things like that when you're younger. And then as you progress, as you get older, then you're really learning the sport, the positions, the strategy, game planning. But the learning never stops. Even at the highest level, when you get up to varsity, you're continuously learning how to be coachable, how to treat teammates, how to interact with officials and fans. And so it just varies by age, but the learning never stops.
You're just learning different things at different ages.
Yeah. In the club world, like you said, you're there to play the sport. At school, it's part of the experience. And depending on who you are and your giftedness and the way God's uniquely designed you, to some people, it's a bigger piece of the whole thing. For sure. And to some, it's not. As a teammate, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with...
They don't care as much about what this
or, wow, you care too much about that. Like, you're always learning.
I'm curious for both of you, what would you say is the end goal for a student who participates in athletics at Trinity? And like you said, some of that might vary depending on their age. Some of that might vary depending on their background and their love for that given sport. But generally speaking, for some, maybe that is to play at the next level. But for some, that might not be, as we were talking about earlier. What would be the trajectory? What would be the hope, the end goal for a Trinity student athlete?
I think it's part of our mission, right? Our integrity, camaraderie, victory. I think our team atmosphere, our culture, brotherhood, sisterhood, kind of things that you guys were talking about, and the memories, even me looking back in my sports time, the memories that it created, but trying to come alongside our mission here at the school, virtue, wisdom, purpose, and courage, it all comes together. When all the pieces come together at the end, we're doing our job.
Yeah. It's forming who they are as a whole person. Success, I guess in that sense, what I hear you saying is success is not so linear. It's not just one facet of who they are. It's just one piece. And so this is forming them just as much and in different ways as they are also being formed in the classroom and other arenas of school life.
And, for those student athletes that may want to take it to a next level, we do have things in place like training, to prepare, teaching them that, you play the game and you win or lose there, but the game is really won in preparing, in training and getting in preparation and getting them ready to go into battle, and teaching them. I think you did talk about, sportsmanship and winning and losing that builds character, and the hard work that Mrs. Cattle brought up. Yeah, those are things that is all teachable, teachable moments.
Absolutely. What would you say for all of you when you look at it? And each of you have talked about this. You've experienced, and whether seen or even worked at, athletics in a different environment, whether that's club or even at different schools. What would you say sets Trinity athletics apart? How is it different from those other environments? Because obviously from a surface level, people might just go, oh, okay, yeah, you're playing basketball and volleyball and baseball and all those things. But I know we try to be as intentional and thoughtful as we can in our overall approach to athletics here. How is it different?
I coached at public high schools. So the number one difference being here is we can talk about Jesus openly.
Amen.
When you're teaching, when you're coaching, when you're encouraging, it's not what I want. It's not what the team needs. It's what we're called to. So there's a deeper level of accountability. So now that we're not just shaping an athlete, we're shaping their heart, right? We're walking alongside them on their journey. So when we talk about being a good teammate, it's not for the betterment of our team. It's because the Lord calls us to consider others more important than ourselves. It's selflessness. So when you're able to bring that aspect into it and make it part of what you do every day, that's different than you're going to find most places.
I'll also add the one thing that I see that is beneficial is even from TK to 12, our high school coaches and their assistants will come down and coach various levels of all our teams. So our families are building those relationships, and the kids or student athletes are hearing the same language from TK all the way up to 12th grade. And our coaches are our pillars of our athletic department.
I think also one of the things that separates us as a school community, Ollie, referencing what you were saying, the virtue, wisdom, purpose, and courage, what we hope for in our mission, isn't just for our children. It's all of us. If you're going to be a part of Trinity, you have to, even as a grown-up, that needs to be what you're pursuing too, which then impacts how the students see us or how we're living our lives. And for our coaches that are working closely with our children, our kids are seeing that and the kind of people that they are, and the hope being, that our kids would want to aspire to that too, whether they go into whatever line of work or coaching themselves, whatever that is, or encouraging, an upperclassman, encouraging an underclassman, and the way that we lead and live. And athletics provides that opportunity because it's a daily relationship, especially when they're in their season.
Yeah.
The other thing that I appreciate that I think we do differently as a school, a lot of our students will do club sports. All three of ours did, but our school encourages students to participate in their team sports on campus, and we work that out so that they can do that. They can do club, they can do a varsity sport and another one. And the idea that you can have a main sport, but also contribute and serve by playing another sport and being on that with your friends. It's hard to put like say exactly what it is, but there's something different that permeates our culture related to, let's do it, let's try it, let's go for it. And the kids pick that up too. And I appreciate that, having had my own children go through our athletics program.
It's interesting. I know you're talking about the importance of coaches and who the influence there, and sometimes even, like you said, going down to the lower levels where high school coaches might go down and coach at the lower levels, because I do think our coaches have a tremendous impact
Absolutely.
on forming our student athletes and who they are. I'm reminded of the quote by the famous Christian evangelist, Billy Graham. And he says that a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in an entire lifetime. And so when we're talking about impact, I do think that the people that are there, it matters.
I was the kid who sat in class and looked at the clock and couldn't wait for recess or lunch or to go out.
So typical boy.
To play. Yeah. Right. And teachers have an opportunity to impact. Admin has an opportunity to impact. But those people are all assigned to you. You get to choose who you play for. You get to choose your coach.
Yeah, I signed up for this.
Yes, this is where I'm choosing to be. So the ability to connect with a player and even, in a practical aspect, we've got block schedule. So the kids see their teachers every other day. They see me every day and for more hours, and sometimes on a weekend if we have a game or something like that.
And a long trip to a game.
Yeah, a long bus ride, whatever it might be. They're choosing to be here. We see them more than some of the people that teach their classes. Sometimes, depending on their work schedule, we see them more than their parents. So because of the amount of time, because people take time, because of that, we have such an opportunity to make an impact.
Yeah. Well, you've heard it I think this has come out more and more over the last number of years. And I remember even working in athletics, hearing from coaches, hearing from programs, they're looking for a whole person. right? They're looking for, they want someone who can put up the numbers for sure. They want an athlete they can trust, but they're like, we want someone who's going to work hard. We want someone who's going to be respectful. We want someone who I'm not worried about their grades and what's happening in the classroom.
I'm not going to worry about you being eligible.
Yes.
They want a student athlete who is really, in that sense, a whole package.
Absolutely.
And I do think that is something that is unique that our Trinity student athletes are getting.
Having 3 of our own children all be recruited, all have opportunities to play at the next level. And every single coach that recruited them and spoke to them asked about what else they did on campus, what else they were involved in, what kind of classes they took, and what kind of grades they had. Related to, are you a whole person, like you were saying, Dr. D? And they want someone that they know has a track record of perseverance, responsibility, being a team member, showing up. Therefore, they can take that with them to the next level. And as a parent, was super encouraging.
The difference between high school and college is in college, you live there. So who do I want to be a part of our family? If I'm a college coach, do I want somebody that's got character issues, is selfish, doesn't go to class, right? I got to worry about him being eligible. No, if you're going to be a part of our family, if you're going to live here for the next 4 or 5 years, I want somebody that I want to be around. I want to be somebody that's going to be a joy. I want somebody who's going to have a good attitude. I want somebody who's going to be responsible. So the things that we're able to do to help shape those aspects of them is super helpful. And then just the reality of different levels offer different things. So in NCAA Division III, they don't give money for athletics. So you qualify for more money based on your grades. So when you come here and you get a great education, more doors are open to you because of your grades. Some schools, NAIA Division II, Division I, they can package both athletic money and academic money, but the Division III can't. So the key there is grades.
Talking to some Division I colleges that were trying to recruit some of our kids, they would ask, for certain game schedules. And I'm like, these are the good games that I think you should come and watch. These are going to be high level quality games. I was shocked a couple times from 2 different schools saying, I don't want that game. I want a game that you kind of going to blow someone out. And I looked at them, funny. And I asked, why is that? They're like, I want to see how he is on the sideline. I want to see how he reacts.
Teammate.
To his fellow teammates. Is he encouraging the ones that are in the game? And I took that to heart through all these years.
Well, I've heard reports of that too, of coaches that go and sometimes they make some determinations based on warm-ups, right? What kind of teammate are they? Are they locked in, working hard, diligent, even when the bright lights aren't on? What kind of person are they? Because are they consistently that person? Which makes sense. And again, that kind of all comes back to what we see and what we understand and what we're striving for at Trinity in developing the whole person, because it's not just about the athletic success. Although we want that, we strive for that. But at the same time, there's so many other pieces that we hope to develop in a student, intellectually, spiritually, all those other facets of who they are.
One of the things I was going to speak to related to what you were saying, Dr. D and Coach James, regarding our students that at large, when they go on to the next level, just for college, but our student athletes that do that, every single one of them comes back and communicates how prepared they were at Trinity, that when they got to college and they're playing in their season, which is robust with all the travel and variety of things, speaking my middle and my youngest, how they can handle it. They, one, can handle the workload. They already know how to manage multiple aspects of being, busy and full, and it makes a difference for them. My middle benefiting from the dual credit, being able to take a few less classes during the course of her season, and also our youngest. It's really encouraging.
I tease the kids when they, we talk to Lily when she's home about the adjustment to college and why she's been able to do it. And I joke with her, I said, because at Trinity, you start adulting at 14. You start doing all the things all the time, and you learn how to prioritize and manage your time and give of yourself and stretch what you think you're capable of to find out that you're capable of more than that. And so when they go on and they're on that 3.5, 4 hour bus ride to their conference game and they're knocking out their assignment on their computer using their hotspot in the van because it's due that night online, you're like, this is not new for me. I've handled this workload before. So you're just kind of thickening their skin and just making them academically and athletically resilient to take on what's coming.
Yeah.
Every student athlete that come back to visit our alumni, and I ask them the same questions. They're like, well, coach, I thought it was going to be harder, with the sport or just in their studies. And I asked them, well, why would you think that? And they're like, because it's college. I'm like, no, Trinity prepared you. You were ready.
What does that look like? I mean, obviously we talk about having well-rounded students, and this goes into the world of not just athletics, but academics and students. Liz, you mentioned students also doing the arts and singing in the musical or, in the choir, whatever that might look like. What's our approach? Because obviously we're striving for a high, rigorous academic schedule for them. We obviously want athletics to be excellent and successful. We want, Ollie, as you said, what did you say? Everything's important, right? Right. And we're trying to be excellent. The point is we're trying to be excellent as best we can in everything. What does that practically look like? Like, if I'm a parent, I'm just wondering, like, can my, James, I know you said, well, they can do it. They're prepared. What does that look like for us? How do we help them? How do we come alongside them and prepare them? Because that's not just, they don't just know, but how do we help them figure that out and train and equip them?
What I appreciate about our school and just our faculty and staff team and working with athletics and faculty related to schedules and what's happening. For instance, recently our Much Ado About Nothing rhetoric school play, all the coaches worked with the theater production team regarding when rehearsals were, when certain games couldn't be, and that certain students during that time would be out and adjusting practice schedules, things like that, so that students can do just that, participate and experience not only being in theater, but also orchestra or a choral ensemble. And if you were to look, I was thinking about this at our recent Much Ado About Nothing production and looking at the stage, and I'm thinking, my gosh, Rainier's on the football team. Lucy's on the basketball team. I mean, my goodness, Thomas is on the swim team. It's endless. Yeah. It's and everyone works together and has a measure of grace when it comes to, okay, that's a lot. We need to adjust. And it goes back to what you were saying, Dr. D. How does athletics at Trinity look different?
Yeah,
I think the big part of that is we have a great team. I think that Holly Bassini works with all the moving pieces.
Yeah, the schedules.
She's a big part of our athletic team. And then we just work together because, like we said, everything is important here to create that well-rounded student athlete.
Yeah.
The partnership is key. And also being able to tell the truth, right? We talk about that a lot on our team. Is the most loving thing you can do for anybody is tell them the truth. So when we have athletes, and we'll take Lucy as an example. Lucy starts on our basketball team. She's an important piece of our team, and she was also one of the leads in the school play. So she has to be honest with me about how she's feeling, right? Coach, I'm overwhelmed. Coach, this is too much. Coach, I need a break. Coach, I'm good. Right? She's got to be honest. And then I have to be honest with her. Hey, yeah, I'm excited for you. I will be at the school play to support you, but you're going to miss a couple games. So as a team, I've got to adjust. I've got to put somebody else in the lineup. I've got to mix some things up defensively with what we're going to do. And that partnership is super important. And when you get Tom Brown and Fine Arts, who just understands all the kids do all the things. It's, he supports us, we support them to the best of our ability. And you have some kids who they do a lot, but their giftedness or their joy comes more from one than the other. Okay, then be honest about what role do you want in the play? Do you want the lead where you've got to spend a whole ton of time? Or do you want a complementary role where you get to be at practice a little bit more and you don't have to miss as many games because your role in the play is not that big? Or vice versa. Look, I'm going to miss a couple games because I want that role. And so, as
it's okay.
Yeah, you just adjust.
Yes.
You know, you learn to adjust. We cancel practice the night of the Christmas concert because I've got so many girls playing handbells or in the choir or whatnot. And so for the girls who aren't in it, we grab Starbucks and we go support our teammates because for that night, you're in choral ensemble or you're in orchestra or whatever. And they make friends there and relationships there. And all of a sudden at our game, I see some of those kids in the stands cheering them on. It's just, we're all pieces of the whole puzzle.
Yeah. And it's a reciprocal support, kind of what you're saying. And that, I do think that starts at the top. That starts with an understanding for all of us working here as faculty and staff to say, these are both important things. We want to be excellent in these things. And how do we balance that? Because I think in different environments, honestly, there's animosity, especially in arts and athletics like that. It's natural and easy for that to happen. And we have to be the ones that lead out to model for our students to say, no, this is important and this is important, but we got to figure this out, and that's okay. It's going to be hard, but it's worth it.
Well, and the reality is we're all sharing all the great things about Trinity. It doesn't mean it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to give up a starter for 2 games in the middle of league. Like, that's not easy. It's hard to watch somebody who's an important piece of your orchestra go have to play soccer and miss, practice. Like, that's not easy.
It's not ideal sometimes,
No, but
to some.
Right. And the reality is, if you want to grow up, you have to do hard things. You've got to have honest conversations. You've got to be able to tell the truth. You've got to be able to take it. That's part of growing up.
Yeah.
I think too is like when I go to the theaters or, the musicals or different things, just seeing them and I am looking, oh, that's a volleyball player, that's a football player,
It's a lot of rebounds up there.
Seeing them in a different context.
Yes.
I would love to hear from all of you. I think something that naturally comes with athletics and comes from sports life are the great stories. What's like maybe a favorite memory, favorite story, favorite game, moment, whatever that might be from Trinity Athletics over the years?
Oof.
I think for me is when I was coaching baseball and my first year here, we went to the finals.
Yeah, championship game.
The championship game that we should have won. And
there's a lot of should-haves in basketball in baseball and sports and all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. The team came together and supported each other and lifted each other up. But that accomplishment in my first year of coaching was the memories that I'll take forever. And sharing that with some of my memories when I played with those kids that they'll never forget.
Absolutely. Yeah. Liz?
Oh gosh, there's a lot. But I think one of a favorite memory was when our team won the 8-man football CIF championship.
That was our first
That was our
championship.
first championship.
Yes, first CIF championship.
That was, like you would say, James, a core memory.
Yeah.
And will be for all those kids.
Yeah.
And still talked about in our household.
That photo's hanging in my office.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then probably a personal one was when our oldest, Ian, was playing basketball and there were 4 seconds left. A 3-pointer, wins the game. We win it by 1. Buzzer beater was awesome.
Oh,
you could see that on YouTube still, I think. I think it's on YouTube.
I think you're right. Yeah. I was going to say the 2 that came to mind for me, one of them was Ian. And because that was double overtime.
It was double overtime.
I mean, it was a crazy game.
Absolutely.
I was there.
And a crazy
called
shot.
the timeout.
I was there. I wasn't a part of the school yet, but I was at the game.
Yeah,
I was there too.
And everyone lost it. And then the other one that I think of that you also can find online was when Bo came in and played, and Bo was a part of our Imago Day school and part of our team and all of that. And the cool story is, I think it was a CIF championship basketball game.
It was. The CIF.
And Bo got in at the end of the game, but was the instant realization from the other team to say, we want to get this guy a shot. And so they kept giving him the ball, feeding
Bigger
him the
than
ball.
basketball.
Yeah, and feeding him, and he had a shot. And I'm telling you, I just saw Bo earlier. If I even hinted about basketball, he would bring it up. And that shaped him,
Yes.
and just who he is. And that was neat that our school got to be a part of it, but also just the other school and those students and that coach, just the understanding that they had, the sportsmanship that they had was really cool.
That was a big deal.
It's hard not to say winning a CIF or state championship.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised at like the things that resonate and stay with you. I think success at any level stays with you. You never forget how you felt in those moments. My first year here, Lily's sophomore year, we're in the playoffs, and I had talked to a couple of our kids off to the side just in conversation about how hard it is to win in the playoffs. Everyone's good. Coach, how good is this team?
It's a one and done.
Yeah, guys, they're the best team you've ever played, right? That's how you have to approach it. Otherwise, you lose and you're done. And I had told the girls, I said, girls, when I coached boys at Valencia and West Ranch, we had been to the CIF quarterfinals, the third round. I'd been there 8 times and never won that game. It's so hard to win in the playoffs. And the way CIF is set up, if you win that game and you go to the Final Four in your division, even if you lose at that point or beyond, you get to go to the state playoffs, which is awesome. So we're in the quarterfinals and we win that game. And Kelly Lotz comes up to me afterwards with just the biggest smile on her face. Like, we got you that one. Like, and I'm tearing up right now because it doesn't, like, those memories are core memories, the way you feel, the way athletics makes you feel when you have success and victory. So to have a kid who in that moment, the biggest game she's ever played in, for her to turn around and think about me in that moment, I'm like, man, these are just unpopular opinion. You don't get that in the classroom sometimes. You don't get that in other aspects of life. There's just such a cool aspect of sports where you get to share success with other people and it bonds you. Forever and ever and ever. The ring that we have is just a reminder. It's a piece of metal, but the reality is it's a reminder of that time
of
and
the journey
people.
and the memory and all of it.
And that stuff stays with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes as coaches, you don't realize the impact you truly are making. And some you see and some you don't. Throughout the years, you'll get a letter 2 or 3 years later of what you did, what impact in their lives. And then sometimes it could be instant. Sometimes be invited to their wedding.
I went to a wedding this year.
Yeah, and be invited to their wedding. Coach DeMarmarin said you're, as a coach, you're in their lives sometimes more than their family time. And the impact you can make is huge.
Yeah. I better get an invite to Lily's wedding.
Absolutely. Let's let her finish school first.
She's got a while.
Yeah. We'll get there. Well, just as we close, I think it'd be great to share with our listeners, share with our families, maybe some resources on participating in athletics, especially in the way that we're trying to do that here and trying to do that uniquely, trying to do that differently from athletics, from maybe a Christian perspective we could see that has been helpful for you. That could be personally, professionally, as you think through these things that you'd be willing to share.
Oh, thanks, Dr. D. I appreciate that question in particular, not only as a head of school, but also as a parent on the other side of it. First, I think every child should play some sort of sport. Try it, get out there and do it. And again, we don't even know where that might lead. But secondly, as a head of school and parent, just for parents with children of athletic age, especially through high school, let them try a couple of sports, not necessarily just focus on one sport. And then if they have the sport they love, go for it. But trust that the Lord has a place and a plan for them. And even as parents, we might even be surprised that when it's all said and done, they might choose something else. They maybe even have an opportunity to play college sports at the next level, my oldest being one of those, and then chooses a completely different route and goes to the military academy. Like, as parents, we encourage, we exhort, help them balance out the journey, but then, keep our hands open as to what the Lord's going to do and speak into our children for what He has for them.
Yeah.
I know it's hard as parents sometimes to just rest in knowing the Lord's going to work that out too. And sometimes it just looks different than what we thought.
It brings back a memory of my first season of baseball. Drew Pfeiffer could have played at the next level very easily, and all the academic achievements that he had. Also, on top of that, he decided to be a doctor.
He's in med school right now.
So it's just some examples like that, some of the paths that some of our student athletes have made.
And that's not insignificant, because I'm sure his time in baseball still shaped him, right? Shaped who he was and is becoming. And so that's not insignificant. And in fact, it's probably an important part of who he is.
Liz ended her statement with, what we thought. And I think that's super important, is just expectations versus reality and having perspective. have that honest conversation with your kid. Like, how important is this to you? What do you want? How can we, as a family, give you that opportunity? But also be honest with you. Go talk to their coach, right? Because everybody knows sports.
Everyone's an expert.
Not everybody knows science or rhetoric or literature, but everybody knows sports. So just go have an honest conversation. As a coach myself, I want to be approachable. I want to be able to, have a family come to me and go, Coach, here's the deal. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And have an honest conversation with them, but also have the perspective. And it's even for an athletic person myself, it's hard because sports ends for everybody at some point.
Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a last game.
Yeah. And then who are you? Right. So really, are we using sports for the sport? As coaches, we use the sport to impact the kid for the kingdom, right? As a family, are you using the sport to benefit your child, to learn all the things that you learn playing sports, to glorify God through it? Or is it about the sport? So if you change your perspective and you make it about the kid through the sport and not about the sport itself, then the way you go about it will be far different, and it'll be for a much greater purpose.
It's great. Yeah. I just want to share, I was thinking back even as preparing for this conversation during my time in athletics, and 2 great resources that we still use around here at times, 2 books actually for parents that may want to look into this. First, very short, small, I would actually call it a booklet.
Not a full book, just a book.
Tiny book, is called Don't Waste Your Sports, and it's based on a sermon by Pastor C.J. Mahaney, based off of 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. And what does that look like? How do we use something like athletics in and of ourselves to bring glory to God? But again, in everything we're talking about, how does that shape us? And then the second one is a book called In the Arena, The Promise of Sports for Christian Discipleship by David Prince. And it's based off of that Theodore Roosevelt quote, the man in the arena, where it says, it's not the critic who counts, nor the man who points out how the strong man stumbles. I always think of like NBA commentators, it's the ones who are sitting on the sidelines like, do you see what they're doing? No. His whole point in that, and I think what it applies to in the context of athletics, is it's the one who's in it. The one who's like fighting and figuring it out and wrestling, whether that's literally or figuratively, to do all these things. Because it's easy for all of us to sit on the sidelines, literally, and point out like, oh, I would do this or I would do that different. Sure. It's like, try it. And Liz, that goes to your point sometimes of like, just do it. Like, try it, and that's going to shape you. So anyway, those are the 2 that really helped give me a framework and a mindset for honestly what athletics should look like at a classical Christian school. But I hope that those can be helpful resources to students and parents as well.
Well, they are to students, because Mrs. Catto comes in our locker room at halftime every season and shares the Man in the Arena. And she comes in the locker room, she hands them out to all the girls. I said, Mrs. Catto, you got 6 minutes to get through this, because we got to get back on the court. And
Dr. D, we do that with all of our varsity sports every season. So if they've played in multiple sports, by the time they leave us, they might have 12 magnets of the Man in the Arena.
That's good.
And they probably go through it right before they present their thesis.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Just to be reminded.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's always fun to talk about athletics, and it's always fun to talk about competition. We all love that. But really, it's important to understand those things from a Trinity perspective and a Christian perspective of how and why we're doing these things to the glory of God. So thank you for your time today.
You got it.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Different by Design. To learn more about Trinity Classical Academy, visit us at trinityclassicalacademy.com. And for more information about our approach to classical Christian education, be sure to check out the conversations over at the Classical Academy podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and share. Until next time.